All right, so open up your Bibles to Ecclesiastes chapter 7. We're going to finish off the chapter this evening. All right, this whole chapter we've been talking about wisdom. All right, and we're going to finish off this evening talking about wisdom versus problems. All right, we all have problems, right? Hey, we're not going to be exhaustive here and go into all the problems that man can face, but we're going to talk about some. All right, but obviously if we have problems, godly wisdom can lead us to the best solutions to those problems. All right, we talked about last week the difference between godly and human wisdom. All right, one is rooted in truth, one is rooted in my truth. All right, and the problem with my truth, all right, or somebody that says that and so forth, like my truth, your truth, what's the problem with that?
It can change.
It can change. That's the problem with human wisdom. When people go with the philosophy or the basis of my truth or your truth, it's always going to change. What you say to be my truth one week could be totally different the next week. Where does wisdom begin?
The fear of the Lord.
The fear of the Lord, that's correct. All right, Proverbs 1 verse 7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Now, in chapter 9, it is the verse where it's the beginning of wisdom. But I think this verse helps us out greatly where we're going here. Is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now, that word instruction there really gives the idea of word, all right? We understand that wisdom is derived from God's word, correct? All right, so turn over your Bibles really quickly to Psalm 112. All right, we're going to look at a couple verses here, all right, that shows how a man that fears God and follows him, why that is a beneficial thing and how that can help him with the problems he may face. All right, we're just going to read a couple verses here. So Psalm 112, all right, and first we're going to read verse 1. All right, it says, praise ye the Lord. Blessed is the man that feareth the Lord. Now understand what we're talking about fearing here is not just the simple sense of like, you're scared of God. It has some of that in there, but it's mostly a reverence of God, to honor who God is. You know who he is, and you revere him, and you honor him for being your Lord. So blessed is the man that feareth the Lord, that delighteth greatly in his commandments. All right, there's the connection between fear and God's word and wisdom. Okay, drop down to verse 4. All right, unto the upright, this man that feareth God, there ariseth light in the darkness. All right, he faces problems in this world, a lot of darkness. All right, the man that is upright, who's following God, he fears God, he's going to have light in the darkness. He is gracious and full of compassion and righteous. All right, and then drop down to verse 7. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. All right, no matter the problems of what kind of things they may bring, he will not be afraid because he trusteth in God, he feareth him, he followeth him. All right, he should not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is fixed, trusting in the Lord. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about some problems that we face as mankind. Mankind faces all these things and how to overcome them with godly wisdom. Okay, now remember, who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes? Okay, Micah?
Solomon.
Solomon, who was considered to be what? Go ahead, Mike.
The preacher.
Who was also considered to be what in the world?
Or the wisest king.
The wisest man to have ever lived. All right, but understand, although Solomon was very wise, he did not always exercise the correct type of wisdom. All right, I think when you guys had a question about that before, we were talking about, why Solomon was the wisest guy. All right, he wasn't always exercising the correct type of wisdom. When he was always talking about this under the sun point of view, this human perspective, understand you can be very wise about certain things, but not exercise godly wisdom. You guys follow that? All right, there is a different type of wisdom as well, and Solomon didn't always operate in the correct type. All right, so the first problem we're going to look at this evening, actually, let's read our passage really quick. All right, so Ecclesiastes chapter 7, we're going to read verse 19 through 29. All right, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not going to take that long. So here we go. It says, wisdom strengtheneth the wise more than 10 mighty men which are in a city. So it just means that, hey, wisdom is better than physical strength, all right? Yeah, it's good to be strong, but wisdom's going to serve you a lot better than physical strength will, all right? The idea there being is you're not always going to be the strongest person, or you're at your strongest your whole life, but wisdom is something that you can always sharpen like a knife. Verse 20, for there is not a just man upon the earth that doeth good and sinneth not. Also take no heed unto all the words that are spoken, lest thou hear thy servant curse thee. For oftentimes also thine own heart knoweth that thou thyself likewise hast cursed others. All right, you're guilty of it too. All this have I proved by wisdom. I said I will be wise, but it was far from me. That which is far off and exceeding deep, who can find it out? I applied my heart to know and to search and to seek out wisdom, and reason of things, and to know the wickedness of folly, even the foolishness and madness. So he's trying to seek out wisdom. He's trying to understand everything, even if it led him to do foolish and sinful things. Verse 26, and I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Now this is a very personal thing he's kind of probably alluding to here. Verse 27, behold, this have I found, saith the preacher, counting one by one to find out the account. Which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. All right, so first, we're going to talk about the problem of sin. All right, obviously all of mankind faces sin. Okay, we all have a sin problem. Verse 20 says, for there is not a just man upon the earth that doeth good and sinneth not. All right. Are we all guilty of sin? Mm-hmm. Yes. The Bible says, for all have sinned and what?
Come short of the glory of God.
That's very true. All right, but understand, sin, you're not just guilty of the sins you do, okay? There's also things known as the sins of omission, like things you don't do. All right, he says there's not a man that doeth good, that always does good. All right? The best person in the world doesn't always do good, correct? All right, they strive to and so forth, but there's always times when someone fails. All right, the Bible says, actually we'll see first guy there, James 4 verse 17.
Therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin.
Yes, therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. So there's sins of omission, but then there's also sins of commission. All right, and that's the idea we usually think of, like choosing to do something that is wrong. All right, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. If we walk in the fear of God, in wisdom, and follow his wisdom, we will be able to detect and defeat temptation that comes our way. Okay? If we are, and where do we derive wisdom from? Someone tell me. Micaiah?
God.
But specifically, what from God?
Wisdom.
No, okay. Ethan.
The Bible.
The Bible. We derive wisdom from God's word. You weren't far off there, okay? So therefore, how can we use God's word to help us detect and defeat temptation? Any idea? Ethan.
Maybe finding some helpful verses.
Yeah, like if you have an idea of the things that you struggle with, all right, for a lot of young people, there's you have struggles with lust or with vanity and so forth. You can find like, hey, I struggle with this. I struggle with what I say. I struggle with the people I hang out with. I struggle with what I put before my eyes. You can find verses. By all means, you come up to me or Miss Christine, and we'll gladly show you verses that can help you understand that problem and how you should confront it with God's word. All right? Memorizing scriptures that deal with those certain problems is a great way to use God's word to combat temptation as well. If you struggle with what you put before your eyes, okay, when you see that, you can remember, in God's word it says, I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. I will not look upon a woman to lust after her, and so on and so forth. Those are things that you can remember to help you combat and defeat temptation as well. When Jesus was tempted in the wilderness by Satan, what did he do every time Satan tried to tempt him? Josiah.
Replied with God's word.
He replied with God's word. Even though Satan himself was using God's word to try to tempt Jesus, now understand he wasn't using God's word correctly, and he was changing a little bit stuff here and there. God still combated him with his word. James chapter 4, verse 7. All right, submit yourselves unto the Lord. All right, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. All right, that's pretty much in a nutshell, fearing God and following his wisdom. But when it comes to God's word, all right, understand wisdom, God's word guides our daily walk. Does anybody know, if I say the references, I don't know if you'll know it, but if I said the verse, you'll definitely be like, oh yeah, I know that verse. Does anybody know what Psalm 119:11 says?
Thy word have I hid in mine heart that I might not sin.
Yeah, thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. Guys, are daily life. What about 119 verse 105?
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet
and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Yeah, how many guys have ever bumped in, like, it's the middle of the night, you don't want to disturb anyone because all the lights are off. How many guys run into things and stuff?
Really?
You step on things and stuff. All right, something me and Miss Christine found out really quickly when we moved into our new house as opposed to an apartment is like, one, it's so much bigger, And 2, it's like, wow, it's super dark in here. And so we got some night lights, all right? Pastor Tim's a little scared of the dark and stuff. But mostly, it was so like, all right, if I ever have to get something in the middle of the night, I don't want to wake up my wife, I can actually see where I'm going. All right? God's word works much the same way in our lives as well to help us detect temptation and also avoid it and defeat it, okay? His word also says, to walk circumspectly, pleasing the Lord, okay? Walking circumspectly is that idea of kind of watching where you step. If you learn God's word, apply it to your heart so you don't sin against him, it's also going to act like a lamp or a light so that, hey, you know what? I don't know why, but I have a feeling like that's not something I should get involved with. Or, what that person's talking about is not right because I know what God's word says. Or what my friends want me to do, I know it's wrong because I know what God's word says. You guys follow me there? It's going to help you walk circumspectly. It's going to help you detect and defeat sin. All right, secondly, we're going to talk about words. Okay, words. Now, specifically, we're going to talk about something, if you can't see it portrayed in this picture here, what is it, Lily?
Gossip.
Gossip. All right, yes, we're going to talk about gossip. So when he's talking about words here, he's talking about what people say about us. Verse 21, it says, also, take no heed unto all words that are spoken, lest thou hear thy servant curse thee. For oftentimes also thine own heart knoweth that thou thyself likewise hast cursed others. So he gets both sides of the coin here. He says, hey, pay no attention to what people say about other people, because on the flip side, you yourself have probably been guilty of doing the same thing. All right, you don't have to raise your hands, but I could probably ask, and if you really were being honest, most of us could raise our hands and be like, yeah, I've gossiped about someone before. Because a lot of times we don't see it as a bad thing, or see it as an innocent thing, or like it's something that's causing that much trouble, but sometimes it can. So let me ask you guys this, what is gossip? If you were to define it, what would you say gossip is? Lily?
Talking about another person behind their back.
Talking about another person behind their back.
Good or bad.
Good or bad. You don't have their permission to. All right? Here's something. Is gossip always accurate?
No, absolutely not.
Why is it not always accurate? Dex?
Because it's coming from someone else.
Because it's coming from someone else,
You're
not
saying.
the source, not the subject of what you're talking about. All right? Oftentimes, a lot of things we gossip about are probably not going to be true. We know Ephesians 4:29 says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of thy mouth, but such as is good to edifying of the saints. All right, that's kind of paraphrased towards the end there. What does edifying mean? All right, Joanna.
Helpful to lift up.
Helpful to lift up. A better idea is to build up. All right. As a Christian, our conversation should be edifying to one another. All right. I'm helping build someone up. Does gossip help build someone up? No. All right, so obviously it's the opposite of what we should do. So wisdom tells us, hey, should I proceed in this conversation? Is it helping build up my brother or sister or the person we're even talking about? Probably not. Turn your Bibles over to Exodus 23. This is a good one here. Exodus chapter 23, we're going to read verse 1. Thou shalt not raise a false report. Say, don't lie. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. It says, not only don't lie, but also don't go along or support the witness of a false witness as well. Don't support a liar. Don't support a gossip. All right? It's one thing to say it yourself, but if someone's bringing it to you, you don't have to support that. You don't have to continue it on as well. Okay? Why should a wise person ignore gossip? Any idea? Why is it we know why is it wise to ignore it? Ethan.
Because it might not be true.
Yeah, actually that's the first one. You don't know if it's true, and it could only serve to hurt somebody. Okay? What's another reason why a wise person should ignore gossip? This one might not be as clear, but it's fine.
You could get yourself into something that you probably didn't want to.
Yeah, you get yourself into things you probably didn't want to because it wasn't true or something. But another good reason I think a wise person should ignore it is because, you know what? I got better things to do. All right? If you're giving into gossip and contributing to it, are you doing anything that's going to be profiting the kingdom of God?
Nope.
No. You got better things to do. All right? Instead of spreading gossip, you can spread truth. All right? You don't know if what you're talking about is even true to begin with, so why not speak about something that's true instead? And we understand we've done our own share of gossiping as well, for being honest. How many guys know the parable? It's not a parable actually, but when Jesus talked about judging one another, Okay, it's kind of the same idea he gave in this passage here. Like, hey, you're guilty of gossiping yourself. He's talking about, hey, why judgest thou another person? Okay, saying like, oh, look at him. He calls it a meat or something, or a splinter pretty much in his eye. But what did he say you have in your own eye? Makai? A beam, a mote. And, he's like, you're saying he has a little splinter in his eye, although meanwhile you have like a big mote or a big beam coming out of your own eye. All right? It's like if I'm going to talk about Dax, talking about how like, oh my word, Dax is so dumb. He got a C on his test and stuff, whatever. In the meantime, I'm not telling other people I actually got an F on that same test. Okay? It's dumb. Why would you contribute to that? All right, next. Lack of understanding. This is another problem that people have to deal with, is a lack of understanding. If you were to ask Miss Christine tonight if Pastor Tim understands everything, she's definitely going to tell you, yes, he does. He understands everything that I want done, everything that's going on at home and everything. Thanks, Micah. I appreciate you. I got my guys over here. I got my support group over here. You don't support, you're just going along with her. And
He does.
Obviously, you don't know how this works.
Guys,
all right, so anyway, we're not gonna dwell on that with Lily or anything. But how many guys understand? I don't know it. I'm not talking about me personally, but you don't know everything. Okay? There's things you just don't know about. All right? Solomon himself was struggling with this problem. All right, because he was the wisest man, and he sought to just understand everything, good or bad. And our inability to grasp the meaning of all that God does in this world is a problem that we face. Now, are we ever going to understand everything? Okay, we're not. There's going to be stuff that even happen in your own life that you're not going to understand why that happened or the purpose of it. Okay, but God does, and that's part of the Christian walk, is walking by faith and trusting in God. But let's look what Solomon says here, okay, in verse 23 through 25. All right, it says, all this I have proved by wisdom. I said, I will be wise, but it was far from me. Like, I'm wise, but I'm not obtaining it all. Verse 24, that which is far off and exceeding deep, who can find it out? All right, who can understand all the things that God has put to work here in this world? It's too far, it's too deep. Verse 25, I applied my heart to know and to search and to seek out wisdom. So he's trying his hardest. And the reason of things, and to know the wickedness of folly, even of foolishness and madness. So his discontent with not understanding everything led him to some bad destinations, all right? He even gave himself fully to, it wasn't enough to understand, like, all right, you know what, that thing is bad. He had to, like, fully understand it, so where he actually participated in wicked activity. He gave himself, we saw this earlier in Ecclesiastes as well, he gave himself over to foolishness and folly, all right? Even Solomon, who's the wisest man, could not understand all that exists and the purposes God had in mind. And in it, he gave himself over to vices and vanity. And as I said, when discontent to walk by faith, okay, as a Christian should, our sight can lead us to some foolish destinations, all right? Someone I think of in the Bible is Lot, Abraham's nephew, all right? He wasn't content to follow Abraham into the promised land, all right? And he definitely, when he decided to step out of faith and live by sight, what did his eyes catch? What did his eyes look upon that caught his eye? Josiah. Sodom and Gomorrah. He looked down and he saw the fields of Sodom and Gomorrah that led to Sodom and Gomorrah, and it reminded him of Egypt. If you guys recall, Egypt in the Bible is always a picture of the world. So it reminded him of the world, and he's like, you know what? I want to go there. I want to be a part of that. And the last time we see him, before we see him again at the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, the Bible just says that Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom and Gomorrah. He wasn't in it. He just got close to it. All right, because it looked good. The land looked plentiful. It looked like a good place to raise his livestock and so forth. And then the next time we see him, he's fully immersed in the culture of Sodom and Gomorrah to the point he's actually an influential person. All right, we see that because he's sitting in the gates of the city when the angels come to warn him about its coming destruction. Okay, living by sight led him to a very foolish destination. All right, same thing happened with Sarah and Hagar. We talked about this last week. Sarah was not content to live by faith and trust in God that she would have a child, like God said. Took matters into her own hand, told Abraham to take Hagar, her handmaid, and have a child with her, and it led to a lot of problems. All right, being discontent to walk by faith led to problems in their lives. However, I'm missing some things here. You're not going to know everything. Even Solomon could. All right. So, however, The wise man knows that he can't know everything. Josiah, you're not going to know everything. Okay? Micah, I think it's obvious you're not going to know everything. Okay? Joanna will know more. But anyway, you're not going to know everything. And you have to accept that. Now, I'm not saying, because I'm not going to know everything, I'm just going to be dumb. No. Guys, study, learn, all right? Excel in the fields that you find yourselves in the future. But you have to understand there's just going to be things you're going to have to leave to the Lord and trust in Him. All right? Like the Bible says, we walk by faith, not by sight. I think I have some verses here. 2 Corinthians 5:7 is where we get this saying from, for we walk by faith, not by sight. And the next one, Romans 1:17. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. Who knows what Proverbs 3:5-6 says? Someone other than Josiah? I think a lot of you guys heard this verse, trust in the Lord. Ethan.
Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not unto thine own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths.
Very good. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Trust in God. Walk by faith. No. Do you want to lean on your own understanding? No. Lean not on your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall what? Direct thy path. So even when you don't know why, you can still trust in God and walk by faith. All right. Our last problem we're going to see this evening is sinfulness. Okay, sinfulness. So first we talked about sin, like our sin problem. Okay, but then we also have the other problem. We just live in a sinful world in general. All right, how many of you understand that to be true? We live in a very sinful world. All right, it doesn't take much to understand it. When you take God out of the picture, you devalue life in general, and sometimes to the point of likening life unto the toppings of your pizza. All right, so we live in a sinful world. That kind of illustrates that greatly. Let's look at verse 26 to the end here. Some of this is a little interesting, but we'll explain here. And I find more bitter than death the woman, whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. So the first thing Solomon talks about here is the harlot. All right, he begins with the harlot. That's what he's describing in verse 26. All right, I think I have your notes there, all the verses in Proverbs that Solomon uses when talking about the harlot, the sinful woman. He's not talking about all women in general in here, obviously. But Solomon himself has fallen snare to this vice. All right, maybe not to harlots, but he did fall snare to just giving himself over to his fleshly lust and giving himself over to any woman, not any woman, but to many women that he probably shouldn't have been with to begin with. All right, turn over to 1 Kings chapter 11. This is actually where you find this in the Bible. How many of you guys have heard us mention in the past that Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines?
I remember.
All right, 1,000 women. This is where you get it. It's not something we just make up. 1 Kings chapter 11, and we're going to read verse 3 through 8. Okay? Now referring to Solomon. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 3 through 8. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. And we'll talk about that in a second. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God as the heart of David his father. All right, and this is where we see the downfall or the downward trajectory of Solomon that we keep referring to here in Ecclesiastes. He's no longer following God like he used to, all right, because his heart's been turned away because of all his other wives. All right, for Solomon went after Ashtaroth, goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, so he's just naming a bunch of gods, the abomination of Moab in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrifice unto their gods. Now, when he says strange wives, he's not, I don't know, for all intents and purposes, they could have been strange personally, but he's not talking about like they were strange in that they're foreign, okay? Now, understand, he's not talking about like you can't marry a foreign, like Americans can't marry someone outside. The idea, the reason, number one, that Solomon married this many people is, how many guys understand he probably didn't love all 1,000 women, okay? A lot of these had to be very, one, he probably had a lot of them were because of his lust, and two, a lot of them had to do with political things. All right, you see this very much throughout history, especially back in the Bible times as well. All right, he's marrying different people from different foreign countries for political reasons. All right, so he's married these people from strange lands, from foreign lands, who do not worship the one true God, and because of that, because he married them, they're close to him, and they have an opportunity to turn his heart away from following the one true God to worshiping these other gods as well. And part of the reason was because he wanted to have the good relations with those foreign countries. All right, so I'll appease them by allowing their wives to worship their gods here in Israel, and that in turn led down to his own downfall of worshiping those other gods as well. You guys follow that? Mm-hmm. All right, so Solomon, he fell to this vice as well of the harlot or of sinful lust after the women that he's definitely not supposed to be with. Now, the way to escape this evil woman, as it's referred to in this passage, you can go back to Ecclesiastes if you want, is, as we've been talking about, fearing the Lord and walking in wisdom. All right? And we talked about earlier about, God's word is something that helps us detect and overcome temptation. Can anybody think of a verse, all right, in God's word? You don't have to say, reference and verbatim, but just understand. Can you think of a verse that has to deal with the fact that, you should not be with a woman that is a harlot or a woman that you're not even married to? Anybody can think of a verse?
I know there's at least one place where the Bible's talking about marriage is one woman and one man.
One man, that's one,
Be
yeah.
not unequally yoked.
Be not unequally yoked. Hey, you guys are thinking of other ones. I'm not one I'm thinking of specifically. All right, Hebrews 13, verse 4.
Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge.
Yeah, whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. So he said marriage is honorable unto all, and the bed undefiled. So it's talking about the marriage bed is to be undefiled. Maybe you guys heard that before. That's a great verse to remember, like when I'm tempted to think of things or look at a woman that I'm in a way I'm not supposed to, I need to understand, hey, that's not something I'm supposed to just indulge in or continue to think about, because I understand that type of activity is reserved for marriage only. All right, and it's the same thing with any other vices or sins we deal with in our life. At the end of our passage here, all right, it goes on, verse 27 says, "Behold, this I have found, saith the preacher, counting one by one to find out the account, which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found." Talking about finding wisdom, like he found one man among 1,000 that has wisdom, but he didn't find a woman. Sounds very slightful towards women, all right? But understand, once again, is Solomon looking at things through the right perspective here? All right, is he looking at things through a biblical perspective and godly wisdom?
Yeah.
I have in your notes there, under the next line of verses under that same section, those are all the verses that Solomon has that when he was walking with God, was looking at things in a biblical perspective and a godly wisdom that speaks well of women. In fact, many of those verses, he likens wisdom unto a woman and so forth. And not only that, he wrote Song of Solomon, which was all about him loving a woman in a very Christ-like manner. But then we're going to get to the last verse here. "Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions." All right, so inventions, or man's wisdom versus God. Did God create man upright?
Yes.
You're just kind of confused. What was that? Yes. Why? How do we know that?
Well, because in the Garden of Eden, they were perfect.
They were perfect. There was no sin yet. When he created Adam, Adam means man. That's where we get the word from. There was no sin. It was perfect. All right. God said everything was good. Okay. And then obviously we know what happens. The whole fruit problem and so forth. Everything was good. And that's where man's inventions started again. What was the very first invention man ever created? Micah.
Clothes.
Somewhat, yeah. He tried. All right, he created clothes out of leaves. How many guys are wearing leaf clothes right now? There's a reason you're not. Okay, it's because obviously it's not gonna last. All right, and it's very representative of man trying to cover their own sin or trying to solve their own problems with their own wisdom. It might suffice for a moment, but it's not gonna last. It's not gonna hold up. God's wisdom does, and this happens all throughout the history of man, even throughout the beginning of the Bible itself. All right, and that's what he says. Man, after he's been made upright, that downhill trajectory since the sin, since the fall, they've been giving themselves out, or they've been given after seeking inventions rather than seeking God. Started with the grass skirt, All right. Then it went to the veggie sacrifice. All right. With Cain, he thought his vegetables were a good sacrifice when God obviously made it, hey, it has to be a sacrifice of blood. All right. And Cain, he got mad about that. Committed the first murder. It all worked out. All right. And then man decided to invent a big tower. All right. And build it up towards heaven. Did that work out for him then? Like, oh, I want to be as high as God, as mighty as God, so I'm just going to build a tower. God's like, no. Tracked him down. Everyone was saying "si" and "we" and "hola" and did this, all these different languages, and then they got dispersed. Okay? Obviously, man's wisdom did not lead to the solutions they thought it was going to lead to. All right? How many of us understand there are inventions that man makes that are very profitable? That's true. Many of you guys have it in your pocket. All right, Pastor Tim has one on the pulpit here. Ethan's using one to record me right now, and so forth. Yes, but even those things don't last. There's going to come something that's going to replace that. There's going to come something that's going to be better than this. There's going to become something that's faster, sleeker, cleaner, whatever it is. It's not going to last, but God's wisdom will. All right? The Bible says that God's word will stand forever. All right? Man's wisdom will pale in comparison to that. So yes, there are many snares and temptations in this evil world, but the person with godly wisdom can make their lives better and clearer and stronger if we fear God and follow after him. You may not understand all that God is doing, but we will have enough wisdom to live for the good of others and for the glory of God.